Trap is a 2024 psychological thriller, written, directed, and produced by M. Night Shyamalan. It stars Josh Hartnett, Ariel Donahue, and Salika Shyamalan. A father and his teen daughter attend a pop concert, only to realize they have entered the center of a dark and sinister event.
You know the butcher? The freaking nut job that goes around just chopping people up? Well, the feds or whatever heard that he's gonna be here today.
Okay, so where do I even begin? When I walked out of the theater, I immediately tweeted my feeling in the moment, and it was, this is the worst M. Night Shyamalan movie since The Happening. And that says a lot. I hated that movie. And this has a lot of the same problems for me in it. The biggest one, the absolute, top problem I have, and I hate starting off negative from the jump, but I really just didn't like this movie. But my biggest problem was the dialogue. There's so many scenes that are so cringy. I'm like, this is not how people talk. This is not realistic. This is not at all how this scenario would play out. I mean, there were so many things, even from the concert itself. When you see different things that happen, you're like, that's not what a real concert's like. Like, for instance, and this is kind of a nitpick, it's a small thing, but the opening act before the headliner goes on, there's still lights for them. Like, they're still treated like a real band, a real act. But in this movie, it's all the lights and all the floodlights are still on. It's like everybody's still arriving kind of thing, and there's this band up there playing. That's her opening act. I'm like, that's not how tours work. That's not, like, I don't understand. That's such a small thing. Like, why would you do that? But it was a ton of things like that I'm just like, that's not realistic at all. But it was worse when it comes to the dialogue, because it just continually took me out of the movie. I think Josh Hartnett did a great job in elements of this movie, at times in this movie, but especially the first half, it's like overacting. He's overdoing the cringy, like, good dad kind of thing. And you're just like, that's not realistic at all. And there's so many weird things where I'm like, okay, that would be a red flag. The daughter would start really wondering what is going on. But just the interactions, the way people talk, like, he goes and he talks to the merch guy, right? Which is all a weird thing anyway. But either way, he pulls aside the guy, he starts talking to him. The guy is going to give him a shirt at one point. So he goes backstage, like back behind in the stock room or whatever, with this guy to get this shirt. What? Like, when have you ever been to a concert and seen some regular guy get to go back behind in the storage room or backstage or whatever to get a shirt or something like that? Like, you don't do that, especially when the guy has to use a badge and a password and all this stuff to get in there. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, does M. Night think we're all absolute morons? But what's really blown me away is, I wanted to review this last night, but by the time I got out, it was really late and I didn't want to wake up my roommate and all of that. So I just waited till today. And I couldn't help but notice different people on Twitter, and then I watched a couple reviews somewhat, and people liked this movie. A lot of people really were into this, and I don't know, maybe something's wrong with me, but to me anyway, this movie was just atrocious. Especially the first act, the first half or so of this movie, maybe even the first 2/3. It's just so cringy, and it literally feels like, because it's M. Night's daughter, okay? And don't get me wrong, she has an amazing voice. She gives a really great performance on stage, all that. But it's literally like you're at her concert. I mean, for at least half of this movie, you're basically, for the majority of it, just watching her perform on stage. And I'm like, I know, I get it. Like, he's at this concert and he's trying to figure out what to do and what's going on. And if you've seen the trailer, you know there's a little bit of a spoiler here. So if you don't know anything about this, you haven't seen the trailer or nothing, you might want to turn this off right here. But if you've seen the trailer, you already know this. So for anybody that's still here, he's a serial killer. He is a serial killer, and he realizes that there's police there. This is in the trailer. This happens in the first 5 minutes of the movie, so it's not really a spoiler. But he's the serial killer that the movie is about, and he's in this concert with his daughter, and he realizes that he's in a trap, that the police are there. They've surrounded the building. They somehow know that this serial killer, which is him, is there, and they're trying to find him. So he's trying to figure out a way out. He's trying to figure out what's actually going on and all that. And there's just so many unrealistic things that literally have to go perfect for him all the way through the movie. Like 1 in a billion, 1 in a trillion kind of things that would just never ever work out, constantly work out for this guy. And it's like, are you serious right now? You come on. Like I said, it's like like M. Night is treating us like we're absolute buffoons. But then back to the concert part, you're watching him go around trying to figure this out, but that's only a small part. The majority of it is basically him and his daughter watching a concert, and they're showing you the concert. And that'd be cool for a few minutes to make you actually feel like you're at a concert. I get that. But for like 30, 40 minutes, that's just crazy. And I'm telling you, you really see a lot of this concert. And like I said, she's great. She's really talented, great voice, and wrote all the songs herself and all that. And I get being proud of your daughter, putting her in this movie. That's great. Just like he produced his other daughter's movie, Watcher, last month or so. And she's talented, but it just makes no sense to show us this much of the concert. But then in this third act of this movie, this is where it really, really, really lost me. Because before that, I was just kind of mildly irritated and just like, okay. But in the third act, his daughter becomes a central part of this movie. Like a very key component, one of the main characters in this movie. And I'm not going to spoil what happens or how that happens or whatever, but she becomes a really crucial part of this movie. And her acting, like she can sing, she can dance, she can write music, all that. That's awesome. Okay. She should stick with that. But she acts in this, and man, oh man, she cannot act. Like, it's so wooden, it's so cringy, it's so hard to watch, especially when it's juxtaposed to Josh Hartnett, who is a hell of an actor. And especially when it goes down in the final act is when Josh Hartnett is the most like on display. Like, he becomes this really creepy serial killer, and you start to see the mask slip, so to speak, and start to really see who he is. And he does a great job. And that could have been something that pulled me back in and been like, okay, I'm in. I love this movie, or I'm at least enjoying it, or something like that when all this goes down. But because of her acting, it's like, what? It just, oh God, it was so cringy, so frustrating. Once again, all these things happen that line up, that have to go absolutely perfect for him to be able to do the things that he does, and it's just ridiculous. On top of that, there is no tension in this movie. I'm sorry, I don't know what other people are seeing in it. I didn't feel on edge. I didn't feel, any real psychological thriller elements. I mean, maybe I would have felt a little more if I hadn't seen the trailer, but I didn't watch the last trailer or any of that. I just saw that very first trailer, so it wasn't like I really knew what was going to happen at all in this movie. So I don't know, but I was not on edge. There was no horror feelings at all in this movie. Maybe a little bit in the final act where you're just like, is he going to go unhinged and just kill everybody or what? But then beyond that, it's PG-13, and it's a pretty weak PG-13 at that. Like, the couple kills that are in this are very tame. Like, you just don't see much of anything. I mean, there's one scene in particular where you see a little something, but it's just, if you're looking for a slasher, this is not the movie. If you're a big fan of M. Night, you might like this. If you enjoyed Old, there's a good chance you'll still enjoy this, because I had the same problems with Old. I just couldn't stand the dialogue. It felt so cringy to me. And then on top of that, just to warn you going in, there is no big twist in this. This is the first movie where M. Night has pretty much played it straight. And I'm kind of glad at that, to be honest, because he's just gotten known for always having a twist. And it's really kind of impossible to always have this crazy twist at the end of his movies and to bring them home. Like, it's just a lot of his movies, it kind of hinges on that. And if the twist isn't good, the movie's just like, eh. So I'm okay with him not doing one, although this is probably one of his first ones that really could have used a cool twist at the end, because it was kind of boring, man. I mean, it's really well shot. it's well acted by the majority of the cast. The wife and the daughter, and then, like I said, Josh Hartnett's character, they're all great. They do a really good job in this. They did a great job of the set design. The performance, like I said, of his daughter is really good. The music's good. The stage look, I mean, it's really well put together and impressive, especially when you know that M. Night basically pays for his movies out of his own production company. So this is kind of out of his own pocket. So a lot of that stuff is impressive that he was able to pull this off and do this big of an event kind of thing. But it just felt too much. It felt like too much of this movie was just watching this performance. And there wasn't tension. Like, I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm on an island. Maybe I'm just tripping. And it's not that I don't like M. Night's movies. I love a lot of his movies. You know, The Visit and Split, as far as recent ones, were awesome. I even liked Knock at the Cabin. It wasn't amazing, and the ending did fall a little bit flat, but I still thought it was a pretty damn good movie. And I don't blame him for Watcher, because that was his daughter. I know he was involved, but even that wasn't bad. So it's not that I hate M. Night and like any recent stuff. And of course I love his older movies, Signs, The Sixth Sense. Like, I even really enjoyed The Village, which is, a lot of people don't like that movie, and that's where a lot of people kind of started to fall off. But I really like that one even. I mean, I like most of his movies. But then there was Old, that was just, you know, really cringy. And then of course a few others, Airbenders, like whatever, just, he's real hit and miss, and this is a huge miss for me. Like I said, in my opinion anyway, it's the worst of his since The Happening. I was bored, it was silly, it was cringy. There were so many things in it that I just don't make sense to me and just don't feel real. And if something feels this out of realism, but yet it's playing in that realism sandbox, there's no tension. It pulls me completely out. Like, if you set up a world where in this universe we're in, you know, there's different rules and different things work differently in this world, that's fine, because then you're playing in a different sandbox, this parallel universe sandbox where maybe some of these things work, but that's not what's being done here. This is presented as a realism, real kind of thing that could happen, but then a whole ton of things that just holes and stuff that make no sense, that don't work out. There's no way in hell that will work out that way. I don't know. There was some cool stuff in it. Like I said, Josh Hartnett goes for it, especially at the end, and I was really impressed with his performance, and I thought he was really creepy and unnerving, especially at the end. I also really liked some of the stuff, like some of the ideas could have been really cool, like where he's trying to figure out a way out of this, and so he's kind of having to be cunning and smart, and there was a few cool things like that kind of reminded me of Dexter, and I thought that was pretty cool. But for the most part, I just did not dig this movie. I really didn't. It's a pretty big miss for me. I'm not saying it's worse than Night Swim or Imaginary or Tarot. You know, it's definitely better than those movies, but not by a lot. Like, more than likely, at the end of the year, this will be on my worst of list. Like, that's how much I dislike this. But I'd love to hear your opinions down in the comments. And no matter what, this is just my thoughts on the movie. It doesn't mean I'm right, and it doesn't mean that you won't enjoy it. There's a good chance I'm wrong, and that the majority of people are going to dig this movie. But that's just the way I felt about it. But like always, thank you so much for watching, and I want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description, or you can become a channel member by clicking on that join button down there. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about another movie that I saw recently. And I'll see you guys next time.